Alright, so we have our left hand done here. Some fancy editing here, and I corrected my mistake that a few people were kind enough to point out. And we have the controls for the hand. That's basically it. We really can't move the hand at all. Okay, if I want to move it, I would actually have to go in here and grab the joints and just rotate the joints into position. Okay, but that doesn't really help us out for what we want to do. So our next step in this is we're going to add in under skeleton, we're going to add in an IK handle tool. And just to show you what this is going to do, I'm just going to make a little joint structure here. And this is called forward kinematics. If I click on the shoulder and then I shift click the elbow or forearm and then I rotate, that's forward kinematics, just rotating these things by hand. So I'm working from the top basically down. So if I want the hand to be positioned here, I rotate this like this, I rotate that like that, and there we go. Okay. Inverse kinematics, which is what this little IK handle tool does. I'm going to go to the option box. I'm going to go to change this from IKSC to IKRP. And then what this allows me to do is create a connector from here to the wrist. Okay, and we already did that on the door controls, but now we're actually using it for something other than just constraining. Okay, so we're going to make sure it's IKRP. I'm going to click on the top joint, click on the bottom joint. I don't need to hold shift or anything. I just marquee around each. And then as I move this handle, see now a handle gets created and a little connector there. I can just move this wherever I want. So I want the hand here, I just move it there. If I want the hand here, I move it there. Now obviously this has some benefits and some disadvantages. Like circular motion for this can be a little bit tricky because now we're animating, just like we did the ball rolling up and down the hill, we have to animate something like that. Also, as we get to a certain point, this thing is actually going to flip. There it goes. Okay, so there are some disadvantages to this, but for a lot of hands and arms, typically the way to go is with IKRP or with an IK handle tool. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So if it helps, you can turn your geometry off, and I'm going to go to skeleton IK handle tool option box. Make sure it's set to RP. That just stands for rotate plane, and you'll see why we need that one in a second. I'm going to marquee the shoulder. I'm going to come down here to the wrist joint, and we have two wrist joints. We have one that's connected right to the hand and one above it. I'm going to marquee the one above it, not the one at the hand. Okay, so now it's connected here. I'm going to call this left hand IK. Alright, so now I have an IK handle that I can move, and you see that it moves all that stuff. Wonderful. If I turn my geometry on just so you can see that, I click the handle and move, it's going to move all that geometry. Turn it back off. Okay, so now my next step in this is I'm going to take these guys here. I don't need these curves, I can actually just hide the curves. I'll throw that on my setup junk layer. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to take these, take those, hit F8, make sure I'm in point mode, so when I grab the points, and I'm just going to marquee the top 2 points of each one. I'm going to go to create deformers, and I'm going to say create cluster option box. I want this relative to be set to off, so I hit create. Okay, I'm going to grab the pieces of geometry again. I'm going to deselect first, marquee the points, and then create deformers, cluster, option box should be the same, create. So now a cluster gives me these little C's, and if I hit F8 I can grab the cluster again. And if I grab and move this, you see how it moves those points? So now what I can do is I can take that and parent it to one of my joints. So this one I can shift click the joint and parent it. This one I can shift click this joint and parent it. And now if I were to grab my IK handle and move it, you'll see how the clusters are moving, and you can see how these ones over here are getting stretched out and these ones here are getting squishied, which is fine. They look a little deformed because they're so tight in there, but it doesn't matter because it's so far away. Okay, and I always undo my IK handle controls. You can never come back to this and reset these to 0 because it freaks out. See how he's like, they're still not at 0, but he's like, you know, grabbing his hip. So I hit undo. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. So I'm going to go to show polygons, and just to test it out, I move this around and you see that it works great. Okay, we're almost done with the rest of the arm control. Alright, so what I want to do now is I have these guys set up, I have my IK handle set up. I'm going to create a controller over here, because right now if I lift his arm up and I say, well, I don't want his elbow out to the side, I want it to be behind him, there's no real way for me to do that. Okay, except for coming over here to twist and animating this twist, and that's kind of counterproductive to our workflow. So I'm going to do create a polygon cube, and this is just another way to create a control. That was a control here, this is another control there. So for this I actually do have to turn on polygon so I can see it. And I'm going to do a little bit of modeling on this just to kind of point out what it is. So I'm going to go to my polygon cube and just shrink my dimensions here, 0.5, maybe 0.25. I'm going to go to, grab it again, go to Edit Mesh, go to Extrude, scroll down in the channel box and turn Keep Faces Together off, and then just pull the blue arrow. And this gives me just a star shape. Go back to Object Mode, shrink it down a little bit. Go back to my extrude, hit T, pull it out a little bit. There we go. I just want this to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so now I'll have a piece of geometry back here. But now what I don't want is this piece of geometry, one, to render. Okay, I don't want this thing to render at all. And if I were to hit render now, it would render. And I don't want to really see it in full shaded mode because that can be kind of confusing. So I'm going to go to the attribute editor for this. And under render stats, I'm just going to turn off all of these things here. Okay, I don't need to turn that one off because that doesn't matter. Okay, so I turn all these off, and now it won't render, it won't do anything fancy. I'm also going to go to Object Display, Drawing Overrides, and I'm going to enable the overrides and give this, instead of full detail, there it is, instead of shading, I'll uncheck that, and now it's just a wireframe. Okay, and that's what I want. I want this just to be a wireframe. I could even change the color of this, and it'll highlight into a different color. Okay, so that way it's kind of easier to see, it stands out a little bit more. So maybe I'll pick something that's like that. That looks good. Okay, so now this is something that won't render, and it's something we can use to control our guy. Alright, so I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to shift click this spoke, do our centering trick, modify center pivot, nope, not modify center pivot, modify snap align objects option box, midpoints, X, Y, and Z, last selected object, and it snaps it over there. Okay, so now I can just scoot it off to the side. Okay, I want it to be lined up with it up and down, left and right, but this way I'm just going to have it off to the side. Okay, I'm going to call this left elbow control. I'm going to delete the history on it, and we're good. Okay, so now I have this left elbow control. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go to Modify Freeze Transform, just to zero these guys out. Every time we rig something, we like to have as clean a translate as possible. Okay, so that freezes all these things, makes them like very, very low numbers. Delete the history again. There we go. I'm going to shift click my IK handle now, that little handle sticking out from the wrist. Okay, so I grab my geometry first, shift click the IK handle, and go to Constrain, Pull Vector. And that's why we were using the IK RP, the rotate plane, is so that we can create this control. Without it, it wouldn't allow us to do that. So now if I grab this and scoot this up, I have this control that I could just move, and control where this elbow is pointing. Okay, now you'll see if we go too far back, this actually intersects with this plate. Okay, so we'd have to do some other kind of setup for that. We definitely don't want to limit the constraint of this, because this is one of those controls that as we start animating, it could get kind of messy as to where this thing is going to end up. Okay, so we can't really put any limits on here like we did on some of our other items, like the door rotating or whatever else. Okay, now our other point of business here is that this left hand IK, we do want to be able to move this to move the arm, okay? But I want to be able to reset it to 0 if I ever get too far away, okay? You always want to have something you could reset to 0. Like these guys that we set up, all of these can be reset to 0, okay? But nothing on this IK. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to group the IK, Control G. I'm going to call this left hand control, or left arm control. Okay, its pivot is down here at the origin. I'm going to put the pivot right here. Okay, so I'm just going to hold down DV and middle mouse button click until it goes right to the center. Now spin around, make sure it's at the center, which it is. That's good. And then I can go to modify, not modify, display, transform display, selection handles. Okay, and now I get, it's hard to see, let me spin around, there we go. Now I get a selection handle here that I can just marquee, and it grabs that group. So now I can grab this group and move it and say, whoops, that's not where I want it, just reset it back to 0, and there we are. Okay, so beautiful, that's what we want. Now I want to make sure that my animator doesn't accidentally grab this, so I'm just going to hit Control H and hide it. Okay, now in some rigs you'll actually see another piece of geometry here. That's totally acceptable to do something like that as well. Just like we created a piece of geometry here, just like we created a curve here, we can create a piece of geometry for this and have that be our controlling object instead of this thing. I'm just showing you a variety of methods, and once you start rigging something in your spare time or for a company, then you can choose whichever method you feel is appropriate. Alright, so now my next thing that I want to do is I have this, and I can't really rotate anything here. Alright, I do have this control and this control that I want to be able to control this rotation and this rotation. Okay, and this will also rotate this way if I wanted to, and this one will also rotate that way if I wanted to. Okay, so there's several things that I can do to set this up. I'm just going to go for a very blunt way to just kind of set these things up. So I'm going to create a couple attributes here called wrist 1, wrist 2, and then rotate XYZ for each. Okay, so modify, add attribute. I'm going to do our underscores here, just 2 underscores, and hit add. That gives us just a divider. And then I'll call this, gotta think, there we go, wrist 1 underscore rotate X. Okay, now just for the speed of saving the type stuff, I'm just going to copy this and hit add. Yeah, that's good, add. Paste it again, Y. Paste it again, change the last letter to Z, add. Now I didn't put any limits in here, which means that the default's automatically 0, and I can change these later if I need to, but most of the time it's going to be fine just to let it go. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just change this to wrist 2 rotate X, wrist 2 rotate Y, and wrist 2 rotate Z. Okay, so now I have my 3 wrist rotations here and here. So what I want to do is link these to the controls of this. So one is going to be Y, one is going to be X, and one is going to be Z. Okay, so I'm going to go to Window, General Editors, and go to my Connection Editor. And my Connection Editor, I'm going to grab this guy and load this as my left. This is my output, okay? Just like our set driven, this is going to be the driver. Now first, the reload right, this is going to be our left wrist 1. So I'm going to scroll down here until I find wrist 1 rotate X. I'm going to go over here on the right and find the rotates. Here they are. I'm going to open it up and click on rotate X. Click wrist Y, rotate Y, wrist Z, rotate Z. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the bottom one, reload that as the right, open up the rotate, wrist 2 rotate X, wrist 2 rotate Y, wrist 2 rotate Z. So now those are connected. So if I grab this and I grab this and I middle drag, I can control this thing rotating like this, or like that, or like this, or like anything. Okay, I have a lot of control over this now. And this might not seem too instinctive, but again, I'm just showing you options now, and once you actually are rigging something, you'll get an idea of what you want to do for each individual piece. Okay, and again, it's important, all these things are zeroable, so in case I were to accidentally, really screw this thing up, okay, I can always reset my scales to 1, reset these to 0, reset these to 0, and I'm back to where I was. Okay, so now that's going to be the setup that you're going to use for that arm. You may want to start coming over here and creating controls for your hands. Okay, so I'm going to make another thing that just is called robot controls. And I'm just going to start putting these little things on those robot controls. That way we can turn them on or turn them off. Even this thing I'll throw on there. Okay, now I do want to take this. If I take this thing and I move it, I want this to go with it. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to freeze the transforms just so they get reset. I'm going to shift click that and just hit P to parent it. Okay, so now if I grab this and rotate it or move it, that's going to go with it. And that just makes sense. As I move my hand here, I want to be able to grab this and then do something with it. Okay, and that's your hand setups. Just repeat that same process for the other arm.